God provides quail. In our last story, we learned about Israel begging God to stay in their presence and not to leave because of their stubbornness. God reestablished his covenant with Israel, and they built him a tabernacle. In this story, we pick back up with the Israelites wandering the desert and their continued distrust in God's provision, as inspired by the book of Numbers. Moses continued to lead the thousands of people through the wilderness towards the Promised Land, and God continued to provide for his people. Moses and the Lord were close and spoke daily. However, the mantle of leadership began to wear on Moses. His eyes looked weary, and his body was tired from tending to all the needs of Israel alone. The people of Israel began to moan in hunger. Like children needing food, they groaned and held their stomachs. Moses could hear their childish sounds from inside his tent. He got up from his tent and went out to find people grabbing him and complaining. "When we were in Egypt, we had fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. Oh, that we would be able to eat meat again. For weeks we have had nothing but manna." They wailed in anxious complaint. Their childish weeping angered God and irked Moses as well. Annoyed, tired, and feeling overwhelmed, Moses snapped at God, shouting, "Have I done something wrong that you would lay the burden of all these people on me? Am I their mother? Did I carry them in my womb? No. Yet you would have me breastfeed them all the way to the Promised Land. I cannot carry all these people on my own. It's too much. You should kill me now so I don't do something I am going to regret." God took Moses seriously, for his burden was great. Over 600,000 people were in his care. Issues of family strife, sexual abuse, fights, and arguments over property plagued Moses daily. It was truly a burden too great for him to bear alone. So the Lord had Moses appoint 70 men out of the elders of Israel to be his officers to relieve his burden. All but 2 came to Moses' side. Moses gathered them all in his tent, and the Spirit of God descended on each and every one of them, even the ones who had remained at home. Joshua watched as even the 2 who had not come received God's Spirit and began to prophesy. Confused, Joshua yelled, "We must make them stop!" However, Moses had a smile on his face brighter than the sun. The wrinkles on his face lifted up as he laughed. Moses put his hand on Joseph's shoulder and said, "Are you jealous for my sake? Don't be, for I would rather the entire camp be filled with prophets." Moses was elated, finally not bearing the burden of all these people alone. The next day, a tempest from the east sprang forth. The mighty winds raged, and carried with it was a flock of quail. The quail ran through camp like a tsunami. For miles and miles there were quail. The people had complained greatly to God about having no meat, and now there was too much for them to eat. Yet with the quail came a price. A plague descended upon the people. Sickness riddled the people of Israel for days, and the anger of God was made known. Their hearts had longed for Egypt, to return to the bitterness of slavery, all because they missed having meat. The wrestling match between Israel and God continued, as did God's mercy, discipline, and blessings.